Good morning. This is Rebel Art and Power. Another installment. I've been told I should probably take some notes, but I'm just gonna wing this one. I've been thinking about recently, obviously the problems that we've had in Palestine and just in general about you know the the fights over who has the right to the land. And it's got me thinking. You know, it's about they have the idea of the two-state solution. The Palestinians, the Israelis. Um, you know, how are we going to get peace in that one little sliver of land uh, in the Middle East that is so controversial and it causes so much problems? Um, so I'm just gonna run with it, and you're coming along. So the problem is that I hear a lot of times is you hear that phrase from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Okay, so that's the chant that all of the protesters have for when they're describing when they're saying, hey, free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine. And as I've mentioned in other programs, I think 95%, and that's my rough estimate there. These are people that don't have enough problems in their life, and they're going out and looking for problems, and they're protesting. The fact that these protests are taking place at spots like Columbia University, or one of the richest spots in one of the most and the richest city in the richest country in the world. That's these people. A lot of them Columbia students. So much privilege. These are the ones with the pitchforks and torches. These are the ones that are fighting for the underprivileged. These are the ones who have had enough. They've had enough. God damn it, they've had enough. They're not going to take it anymore. you know, life life's been too good, and we're not going to take it anymore. We're going to protest. Let's take it to the gates of Columbia in New York City. It's ridiculous. Let's free those Palestinians. I'm not trying to undermine the plight of the Palestinians. There's been a lot of injustice that's gone down there. There's been a lot of, it's war. Name me a war that's fair. It doesn't exist. War is nasty. There's no justification. You say the Palestinians deserve that land. Okay. And then you could just say the Jews deserve that land. Why? Both could say historically, well, they were there first, and they could, well, the Jews were there first historically, but that was longer ago. The Palestinians were there more recently, so they were there first. Okay, but then the Jews came in and kicked out the Palestinians, so now they're there. So yeah, but it just seems like this argument of who was there first. That's not a legitimate argument, really, to me. we're talking about two sides wanting one thing, and it's no different than what's gone on a gazillion times and a gazillion different scenarios over the past gazillion years. Two sides fighting over land. And let's look at it here in America. You know, yeah, it's something that we don't talk about ever. It seems like, and it's frustrating. It always seems like the elephant in the room. You know, what the Europeans did with coming to to North America versus the Native Americans here that were over here. You could say that they stole the land from them. Okay, they stole the land from them. I mean, it's other Native Americans were fighting. I mean, it's not like there was some utopia here in North America. I mean, especially if you want to go down and really look at a more at something that I think is more documented anyway, because they had, for whatever reason, you looked at the Aztecs in southern in southern North America, and you look at that, it's not a land of peace. Everyone isn't just standing around singing kumbaya. I mean, the Aztecs were taking people from neighboring communities and dragging them up a set of stone stairs, cutting their hearts out, and to make sure that the sun came up every day. And those neighboring communities didn't like it. There was fighting over land. There's this idea of the noble savage that I think we have in our minds, that the land belonged to no one. It was just the Native Americans. They all shared it equally, and everything was fine. It's BS. They were hunters and gatherers, and there was some migration and whatnot, but they fought over land. They fought over hunting ground too. It's no different. There were tribes that fought. There were tribes that didn't fight. There was peace between certain tribes and whatnot. I mean, I'm no expert in inter tribal diplomacy in post 1492 and here in America, but I mean, there was fighting between the Native Americans constantly. And they fought each other. They fought over, and what did they fight over? Resources, land. And so it's not a lot different. What's the difference? That the people that fought the Native Americans were a different race, had a different level of technology. I mean, the Native Americans were not some kind of unified front that said, "Hey, this is our land," and whatnot. But it's easy to cast it that way. It's easy to say, okay, it's easy to paint it in a light and say, okay, the Native Americans had America. This is our land, and the Europeans came over and stole it, cheated them. I mean, in some senses they did. There was those, there were bogus trades, and you hear about Manhattan being sold for beads and stuff like that. But I mean, really, what it came down to was, I've got a gun, you've got a spear, I'm taking your land. Go do me something, I mean, and that's, unfortunately, that's been the story over countless generations. We are all the beneficiaries of that gun versus spear showdown that happened between the Europeans and the Native Americans. And the question I often ask people sometimes, and I mean, it's a hard question. I mean, but it takes some soul searching, and it's not about right and wrong. It's not about skin color. It's not about race. It's not about any of these things. It's the rule of the jungle, unfortunately. And it seems like, okay, well, like I said, the question I often ask people is, it is terrible that the Native Americans, they lost their land, a lot of their land. Some of them integrated, I guess, but would you? Because anyone who's watching right now probably is a U.S. citizen, and if there is such an injustice done, and there was injustice, definitely, give it all back. Let's if you could rewind time, if you had that ability. There's Ava. She's throwing in her 2 cents. She's like, yeah, let's rewind time. That's cool. You wouldn't know what to do with it, Ava. If we could rewind time, change it all back, make it so the Europeans never were somehow incapable of defeating the Indians, give all the land back to the Native Americans, hand over the keys to your house and everything. Would you do it? I wouldn't. I'm kind of happy. I kind of like these 4 walls. The computer screen that you're looking at right now, it's just like your whole life, would be different. Would you say, oh, okay, let's just pack everything up, or let's not have this because this isn't right? It belonged to the Native Americans. Would you give it all up if you could? And you could. We could go back and square everything up. No amount of money, no amount of reparations is gonna make right. I don't know how you calculate anything like that anyway. Would you give up your land? Would you say, okay, well, I don't have a right to be here because the Native Americans were here first? It's really no different in the Palestinian case. We are in Indiana. I'm in Indiana, named after Indians. Columbus thought he was in India or something. I don't know, but we're in Indiana, named after Indians. Do we give it back to the Indians? I'm not. Am I a jerk? Well, I probably am a jerk, but that's a different story. But I'm not a jerk for that reason. The question is, do you you say, okay, this, I don't have a right to be here. That's something that every person here in America basically could say. I don't have a right to be here because the Native Americans were here first. So I'm packing up, people. I'm following Rosie O'Donnell. I'm going to Ireland. Peace. Deuces. No. You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't give it back. Uh, and is it for the and there's for all the evils that America has committed. America has committed numerous sins, numerous sins. It's a mixed bag, just like we've talked about before. You know, Henry beats his wife, but he adopts 6 kids and sends them to college, and reads to the blind. On Sundays. I don't know. It's a mixed bag. It's not one thing. No country is all good or all bad. No person is all good or all bad. It's a mixed bag. America, for all her sins, has done a tremendous good for the world. If we could rewind and would you? Would you rewind? Would you say America shouldn't exist? Leave America to the Indians. I'm just saying. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer. There isn't. It's too big for us. It's too big for me anyway to answer. But for my vote, I'd say no. And maybe you could argue that if there's any problem, it's that I say no too easily. I say hell no. I say hell no, I'm not giving it back. Hell no, I like my house. Hell no, I like my house in Indiana that was taken from the Indians through war. It's war is awful. Who wants freaking war? I mean, in the end, it is what it is. I would not change it. Unfortunately, sorry. I would not change it. And would you? I mean, that's a question that everybody could ask themselves. Would you change it? Would you say? I mean, I've talked to some people and they were like, "Yes, I would. I would." No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You don't know what the heck you're talking about. It's the same thing with the Palestinians and the Israelis. And the Israelis have tried multiple times to say, okay, here, we'll give you this land, we'll give you that, and this and this and this, and they keep fighting and fighting and fighting. There's no no peace. And there would be no peace with the Indians either. War is total. War, it's the same thing with people fighting, wars and agreeing not to use, like in World War II, agreeing not to use poisonous gas. It seems silly to me. War is total. War is brutal. It's the same thing with nuclear weapons. I mean, that's why we're in a scary position anytime. And look what just happened with between India and Pakistan over Kashmir, another disputed territory. 2 countries that have nuclear weapons that could annihilate themselves and everybody else. If they really go to war, if we really, if we really want to go to war, war is total. Things will escalate and go literally nuclear. So, we've really reached a tipping point, and I guess that's somehow something of the argument with the Palestinians and the Jews and whatnot. You say, well, America, it was a different time back then. We had, it was a rougher time. Now we're more civilized, and we need to give the Palestinians a state of their own. And they're playing by different rules. So and obviously they're playing by different rules. You hear what they're saying from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. They're saying, let's fight. Okay, let's fight, and let's fight it out. That's the. Unfortunately, we've progressed in a lot of ways, but I don't see a progression beyond just duking it out over something and saying, you know, to the victor go the spoils. You know, there's that story about when Alexander the Great was on his deathbed, and he had his ring, and all his generals were standing around saying, "Yo, bro, you know that big empire, that big mass of land we just conquered. You know that whole swath of land. We just took over like most of the world. Who are you gonna give to, buddy? Who's gonna be the leader? You know?" And Alexander, in his last dying gasp, and everyone was saying, "Who does it go to? Who does it go to? Who does it go to?" Every general was standing around. Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? And Alexander says, "To the strongest." And there's your answer. To the strongest, unfortunately. Or fortunately. The other Arab countries all around the Middle East, they have taken no Palestinian refugees. None. Because they've taken them in the past, and those Palestinian refugees have caused nothing but trouble. I mean, look into it. There's a lot of history there. I mean, I've done some research, and it's just, I could pull up maps and draw you pictures and stuff like that, and we could break it down into bite-sized pieces. But the neighboring countries, they don't want the Palestinian refugees because they have caused a lot of trouble in those countries. So their Arab brothers don't want them. They won't take them. Nobody's taking them. So where do they go? I don't know. So really, it's an issue of war. I'm gonna fight you. It's not about right or wrong. It really isn't. When people are storming the gates of Columbia and saying, "Free Palestine, free Palestine," they say it as if it's like a moral issue. It's not a moral issue. It really isn't. War isn't moral. Nothing. All of history, all land has been fought over. Egypt is an Arab country. It wasn't originally. It was Egyptian. You know how it became Arab? The Arabs fought for it. They came over. They killed a bunch of people. Now they speak Arabic. If the Nazis had won, all Europe speak German. Didn't happen though, because we stepped in. But that's how war goes. To the victor go the spoils, and we're not out of the woods. We're not. The history books have not been closing. They're not closing. We are still in that cycle of gun versus spear. Sorry, you'd like to think that we're more sophisticated than that we don't have to do that anymore. We are not. We are not out of the woods. It is still brutal. It is a fight. There is no right or wrong. There is no right answer for Palestine. It is to the strongest, and that is that. I know that is a hard thing to swallow, but until they can recognize that, there will be no peace, because there is no peaceful war. War is brutal. So basically, as you know, the Israelis have tried to be nice and say, okay, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, and what has it got them? Nothing. Just war, just more war, more war. You know, they've tried to say, okay, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, just let us be in peace, and it doesn't work, and that's why we're still fighting over it. You know, unfortunately, if there was some, I mean, there needs to be just an all-out kind of fight for it to just finish it. You know, just say, okay, well, this is it. You know, the West Bank, you know, make the West Bank Palestine and just say, okay, we're putting you people here. Bam. Like it or lump it, you know. And if you fight, we'll come do you in. Take it or leave it. And then just be done with it. You know, just stop fighting over it, because there's no peaceful back and forth. There's nothing is gained, nothing is resolved, nothing will be resolved. It just needs to be duked out. There's no peaceful process. You know what's going on in Russia with Ukraine. You know, they're fighting over land. You know, and probably the way that it's going to stop is, I mean, that's the way it's looking anyway, is that Ukraine is going to have to give concessions and lose land that was fought through war. That's all there is to it. How'd they get the land? They fought for it. Was it right? Was it noble? Was it just? I mean, no. They just fought for it. So that's unfortunately, that's how countries are built. That's how the West was won. I don't know. It's not something that I glory in. I mean, I don't say that flippantly. I think I'm maybe coming off that way, saying, well, what do you expect? It is lamentable. It is sad. There's you know, a lot of terrible things have gone on in the name of nation building, but there's been a lot of beauty too. I mean, it's just like life. I mean, there's a lot of ugliness, but there's also a lot of beauty too. You know, I mean, I go back to America as the example. So much cruelty and so much evil has been committed and throughout, it continues through the process of making this country. But this country of the United States of America has done incredible good for the world, despite all its long laundry list of sins. And once again, would you take it back? Would you edit history? No. It is what it is. America is a wonderful place, and it was built on some terrible, terrible things. I mean, I go back to Roman history again. You know, there's this story about the rape of the Sabines. The Romans were setting up their city. They're saying, "Hey, we got this great city. We're gonna build it. We're gonna build Rome. Yo, guys, check it out. We're building Rome. Yep, come on in. We're building Rome." So they're building. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. It wasn't. It's true. So these guys, they're bumbling around on the 7 hills of Rome. They're like, "Damn, we got this good idea. We got this great idea." I'm sorry. We're gonna build us some Rome. We're gonna build us some Rome. Check it out. Check it out. We're gonna build Rome. Y'all hear that? Y'all hear? We're building Rome. Everyone's like, Greece is like, yeah, go away. Egypt is like, yeah, we've been building pyramids for 1,000 years. Go away. We don't care. We don't want to hear about it. You know, Rome was founded around in the 8th century in 753 BC. You know, by then the pyramids had already been 1,000 years old. You know, a lot. There has been already great civilizations. The Greeks were already doing their thing. You know, but anyway, so they're building Rome. They're sitting around. They're saying, "Yeah, we're gonna check this out. We're gonna build this Rome." So we got this great idea for Rome. Sorry, it still just cracks me up. Hey guys, we're gonna build. Come on in. We're gonna build Rome. So anyway, so they all get together and say, "Hey, we're gonna build Rome. Check it out." And they all agree to it and say, "All right, that is a cool idea. Rome sounds cool." But you know what we're missing? We're missing women. Jeez Louise. You know, this is a great place. It's already, we love it. We love it already. But it sure could use some women. So what they did is they said, we're going to use some chicanery. Good old chicanery. We're going to, yeah, Teddy, yeah. Are you eating drywall? Please don't do that. Okay. My animals are dying. They call on the Sabines. Hey, Sabines. We're throwing a party over here on the Seven Hills. It's going to be great. Come on over. Bring your women. So the Sabines, they all come over. They bring all other women. I mean, I'm laughing about this. Is terrible. I mean, I'm sorry. It's a little bit comical though. And all the Romans, they all look to each other and they give each other the wink and they start abducting the women. And they take all the women and they abduct them, kick out the men. And it's called the rape of the Sabines. And you can imagine what that included. Not a nice story. You know, I laugh, but you know, yeah, that's pretty cruel. Yeah, that something, you know, you could say, well, I probably didn't. It probably did. You know, they abducted women, and they abducted the women from their neighbors. And they created more Romans. And it's called the rape of the Sabines. And so, and you know, it's funny is the Romans talk about this terrible act that they did. You know, it's not that they glorified it, but they acknowledged it. They said, yeah, we did this thing. We did this awful, terrible thing. Had to be done. Sorry. The rape of the Sabines. They raped all these women. It's like war. It's like there's no nice rape. Jeez. So we're building Rome. Gotta rape some people. She's just like, did you have to do that, guys? Now the question comes again. Do you hit the rewind button and say, no, we wish that didn't happen. Let's stop. Rome, you know, no more Rome. If it involves the rape of the Sabines, then we don't want Rome. Can't do that. Rome's got to be built. So I guess the Sabines have to be raped. Hey, I'm not, it's terrible. It didn't have to be, but I'm saying it happened. And if you could go back and fix it, you wouldn't, because then you wouldn't have the good things that happened because of Rome. And that's a terrible, it's an awful thing, you know, out of this cauldron of cruelty and wickedry, evil. There's nothing more evil than rape. Nothing more disgusting than rape. In many ways, I think is worse than murder. But out of this terrible cruelty, you could create something as majestic and beautiful as Rome. That's a hard one. You know, it's hard to swallow. You know, it's just like, how can it be two things at once? I mean, how can Henry be his wife and be so loving to all his adopted kids, be so helpful to those blind people on Sunday? How can that be? It just can't be. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I can't answer that. But it is. Life is ugly and beautiful all at once. The rape of the Sabines. One of the key stepping stones in the creation of the great state of Rome. Oh, you could say, oh, Rome wasn't great. Rome was evil. Rome was evil. Please. Everything around you is basically, in one way or another, a continuation of what was set up in Rome. You know, all our administrative ideas and the way we do business and conduct things and our alphabet, forget it. Rewind the clock. Go do me something. Go cleanse history. You know, there's a chore for you. Go make history nice. It's not nice. Look at the bombing in World War II. The Japanese. God. It's like, did you really have to do that? Did you have to bomb all those people? Well, there were a lot of men on boats bobbing up and down waiting to invade Japan. It would have been bloody, but hundreds of thousands probably people would have died. I don't know the exact figures, but I mean, they dropped those bombs and a lot of men that would have died got to come home and see their families and have kids. A lot of people wouldn't be alive right now. I mean, there are a lot of people that aren't alive now because they dropped the bomb over in Japan, but was it for the good? Was it all for the good? I would say yes. You know, I think it was Martin Luther King who said that the arch of history is long, but it bends towards justice. You know, there's a lot of evil and wrong things that are committed in the pursuit of going forward. Was it wrong to bomb Nagasaki and Hiroshima? War was brutal. I mean, it's like Stalin said, you know, one death is a catastrophe. A million is a statistic. I mean, it's true. I mean, if you're gonna kill 10 people, it's just as awful as killing 10 million people. I mean, geez, every life is precious, you know, and to do it with such precision and such finality so quickly. Was it all for the better? Was the world a better place post World War II? I would say it is. I would say the world is a better place for having the U.S. and the Allies win World War II. Japan, even. Germany, even. Both of these countries were the benefactors of the U.S. defeating them. And I would say that the Native Americans that are still here in America, that have lived and survived and interbred, and I think that their lives have been richer, even though obviously a lot of them didn't make it. I think it was like 99% of them died or killed off, but those that survived were better off. And you could say the same thing about African Americans. Slavery, what a terrible way to come to America. What a terrible price to pay. I bet there are a lot of people in Africa that would have preferred. I can't. I'm not them. I'm only me. But I'm sure there are a lot of people in Africa that would have preferred to have been born in America, despite the legacy that they'd have to thus bear, the legacy of slavery and racism and injustice. I think they would gladly bear that burden, that awful shame, rather than meet the conditions that they're often living in some of these awful war-torn countries in Africa today. And is that to say that therefore slavery was justified? No, I'm not saying it's justified. I'm not saying the rape of the Sabines was justified. I'm not saying that bombing Nagasaki or Hiroshima was justified. I'm saying it happened, and I wouldn't undo it. And that's the heartbreaking truth of it. And you take that knowledge and you say, okay, you wouldn't undo it. So what do we do now? What do we do now about the Palestinians and the Jews? Having said all that, having said, yeah, America is the better for running these people off the land and whatnot. Yes, Rome was great. The Sabines were raped, but Rome did a lot of great things and created the basis for our civilization today. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, I don't think you could say the same thing about, if the Nazis had won Germany, it would have fallen apart. There would have been because it was an evil, autocratic, fascist government that would have kept fighting on the underground and would have taken it. It would have collapsed because it was so corrupt and evil from the onset. I think that eventually it would have fallen apart, and it would have been more war if the Nazis had succeeded and taken over, because the Russians were coming anyway. It wouldn't have worked. The rot was too insidious right from the get-go. Anyway, so I mean, you could say that. Then maybe you could say if the Nazis won, it would have been great too. No, it wouldn't have been. The Nazis didn't have any. They weren't going to make Europe great. They did do some good things for their country. There was some good things, but on the whole, that was an evil regime. But I don't want to get off base on that. Anyway, what to do about Palestine, knowing that there's been great good. Israel is a great country. I've been there. It is a great country. You don't want to knock them off the map. Something needs to be done with the Palestinians. They need their country. They need a spot of land or whatever. Like I said, I don't know enough about it. I'm looking into it. I'm researching a lot of it. But Israel isn't going anywhere, and it shouldn't. Get over it. It's the same thing with the United States isn't going. We're not packing up our bags and leaving. Israel is here to stay, and it's funny is that all of the Arab states around it know that too. That's what I was talking about earlier. They're not taking Palestinian refugees. They're not fighting the Israelis anymore. They tried that in '67 and they lost, and that was it. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan. They're not open about it, but they're with the Israelis. Because the Israelis are sane, are neighbors. They've got a cogent government. Israel's not going anywhere. And the Arabs, even if they don't like it, publicly, they are supporting and allowing Israel to exist. So something needs to be done with the Palestinians. They need to have, I don't know, the West Bank or whatever, put them there, deal with them there. As far as the Temple Mount goes, I think the Muslims have control of that. I think maybe that was a mistake. I think maybe that should be taken and given to the Israelis. And that's my own personal opinion. I know that's probably someone's gonna say, "Well, that's terrible. You can't say that." It's once again, it's just like it's war. Go do me something. I'll fight you for it. That's what it all comes down to. Still to this day, I'll fight you for it. That's what it. We are not out of the woods. We are still in history. Everything is. I'll fight you for it. It's not nice. It's reality. So the Temple Mount really should. I'm tired of the arguments and whatnot. It should be administered by the Jews, and I'm sure that they'll let the Muslims pray there and whatnot. But you can't have. There's no. You got to have someone in control. You can't. A ship can't have two captains. It doesn't work. It just does not work. You got to have someone that has the final say about something. And this whole thing about, Israel runs Jerusalem, but the Muslims run the Temple Mount, and they have the final say. And it's just endless confusion and chaos constantly, and bickering, and just be done with it. Be done with it. Give it to the Israelis. Be done with it. Be done with it. Because when you just keep pussyfooting around, more lives are lost in the process. More hurt. It's like pulling off a Band-Aid slowly. Just do it. Give the Palestinians the West Bank. I don't understand Gaza. They're talking about making it the Riviera of the Middle East. I don't understand that. But, give the Palestinians the West Bank, take it or leave it, and if you keep firing rockets, we'll come blow you up. That's it. Take it or leave it. There are plenty of Arabs that are in Israel that are Israeli citizens. So take it or leave it. Playing nice doesn't get you anywhere. It just does not get you anywhere. They're not playing by the same rules. So, the Israelis give them something and they say, okay, and then they bomb, 2 weeks later. There's no point. There's no point. You gotta play hardball. Say, this is this. Hey, we're taking this. That's it. Show's over, folks. That's a wrap. Take it or leave it. So, and let these people keep arguing at Columbia about Palestine, about the injustice of Palestine. Okay. They're gonna keep writing about something. It's just like the BLM movements or something. They're gonna keep. You can't stop that either. There's gonna be some other fashionable kind of thing, that injustice that will grab everybody's attention of the overprivileged. It's always the overprivileged that want to tear down the system that privileged them. Things are not fair. It's always them. Life is too good for them. They gotta go protest it. It's funny. So, yeah, Israel's not going anywhere. And anyone with any kind of sense knows that. So it's just, when are you gonna wake up and get with it? That's it. So I think I'm gonna leave it there. You done with that drywall? I think he is. Have a good day, people. Bye.